Welcome to Cradle and All, a podcast hosted by sisters Renita and Christine to educate, inspire, and connect with other mothers. Every other week, listen as we discuss topics related to pregnancy, raising children, and balancing motherhood with other aspects of womanhood. Whether you're relaxing, juggling tasks, or even breast pumping, join us as we figure it out together. Hey, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of Cradle and All. This is Renita.
And I'm Christine. And we're saying our names. So we've heard some feedback that we sound alike. Even though I don't hear it. I feel like you and I sound really different, but everyone else is like, who's who?
I know. I don't hear it either, but I've heard it time and time again. So hello, you guys, and welcome back.
Yeah, I'm Christine.
Yes. So this is Renita, and today we're going to be talking all about relationships with our partner, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend after having had baby. So my husband, Bryson, and I, we just celebrated our 6-year wedding anniversary. We've been together for 12 years, and I've just been thinking about what a journey it's been since we've been together, but definitely since we've had the kids. Now about 3 years or like 4 years since we've been pregnant. Mm-hmm. Now, when you think about the days, the weeks, the year leading up to your kids being here, what did you think life was going to be like? Is this what you thought Dontrell was going to be like as a father, or what your role as a mother was going to be like? I did have some expectations. I thought that I would be the disciplinarian, and I'm such a, as I've said already, type A, that I just assumed that I would be the one who was kind of like in charge when it came to, you know, how dinner was going to go and little things like that. Mm-hmm. But it's actually been a bit reverse. Oh. I am the one who is like more lax when the kids need more discipline. Like, I'm not the disciplinarian at all, and Bryson really is. And this was one of the first times that I think Bryson and I had conflict when it came to something, because we had different opinions on how to handle certain things. So let's get into a little bit of what things look like when you guys don't agree. So for me, Bryson and I have been together for a while, and then having kids was the first time that we really had to do something together that we were both passionate about that maybe wasn't seeing eye to eye. I think one of the first things had to do with feeding Jackson solids for the first time. Our pediatrician had said we can do it at 4 months, and Bryson was ready to get started after that appointment. And for me, I was like, wait, it's not time. I'm not ready. And I just was not emotionally ready. And I just was a little bit nervous because I was like, oh, 4 months. I heard 6 and all this other stuff. And so we actually got into one of our first big fights since Jackson was born about feeding, because he felt so strongly that the pediatrician said you should do this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, but it's not time. I'm not ready. And just trying to figure out who was right. So it's an interesting dynamic in that way. Have you guys had any kind of, I'm sure you have, communication issues like that?
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to things that I think mothers can be, that I also was particular about, which was feeding. Oh my God, so many things. Feeding, schedules. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye on those things. Mainly it's about, the meals, the schedule, the sleeping. And we've had blow-ups about it because I feel like I'm just so strongly feeling like it needs to be done a certain way, especially with the first child, feeling like everything has to be done by the book. Mm-hmm. I had to learn to let go and learn to like not have everything be my way when it comes to what's best for the kids with regards to like eating, sleeping, activities, things like that. So yeah, we also had blow-ups about that. I remember, like you said, with feeding, Dontrell was like, oh, we'll just give him, I guess you're done nursing, just give him some formula like that. And I was like, no, it wasn't a huge blow up, but that's just one example of us not seeing eye to eye. And many times I feel like he just kind of lets it be my way as a default, just feeling like maybe he trusts my opinion, my judgment, or maybe he just does not want to argue about it. So he just lets me have it. But I did have to, something I did learn over time is that to not bulldoze and let things always be my way, and just to be more flexible, bendable. I remember when I was in therapy with when I was pregnant with Dakota, I said I would get so worked up if things weren't a certain way. And she was working with me on having working through the issue with me of like, why do you think that is? What do you think would happen if things aren't that way? And it going back to feeling like something bad would happen or something would go wrong if he goes to bed at 9:00 instead of 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
And so just, having to recognize that we are both right. Him and I are both right. And that it's going to be okay if things are not always, my way. So we had to work through that, because there are certain things that he really puts his foot down when it comes to the kids, like with feeding, for example. Dakota's eating solids now. And one thing we did differently was that we didn't like gradually introduce foods like we did with Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, we're like, well, we've gone through a lot. We're kind of back at repeating. So let's just start giving him everything. And he was very much adamant about that. And I was against it. I was like, no, we need to actually keep introducing things. What if he has an allergic reaction? And instead of arguing about it, I finally was like, you know what? Whatever, like he'll be fine. And he is fine. He's eating school lunch now. He's 9 months and he hasn't had an allergic reaction. So that just goes to show, like, certain things over time we've learned how to navigate when we don't see eye to eye. Like, one of us will just really just have faith in the other person and just it's not worth the disagreement.
That's good. Now, I was reading an article recently, and it listed the most common fights that parents have when they have a new baby. And so I'm reading it, and it's going through this list of things, and I'm like, yep, that's right. Mm-hmm, that one there. And so I'm going to ask you some of these, and let's talk through some of them.
Okay.
So you mentioned one right now is who's doing it the right way. So you said that you sometimes let go when he has a certain way that he wants to do it, and in your head you really want it to be that way, but you let go, and that's good for you, because I have a hard time letting go. Because sometimes you just really feel like your way is the right way. So They said that that's one of the most common fights that people have when they have kids. And I think that for me and Bryson, we had been together for 6 years before marriage. It didn't really matter who was right or wrong, because we were, living our lives together, but individually. And having kids was the first thing that we did together that we're so passionate about. So it's really great that your therapist was like, what's the worst that can happen? But, you're right in that you feel this conviction that the way you're doing is the best thing for your baby. But I found that for me, trying to remind myself that he has the best intentions in mind for our kids it's good. But when you're in the moment, you feel really strong about it.
Yes. Something that Dontrell has told me is, I'm just as much a parent as you are. I became a parent the same day you did, which is true. He's absolutely right. So there's no, I don't have any one up on him or anything like that. It's like, he is just as much the parent as me. So the conviction I have, he equally has that same conviction. So when he says that, I'm like, you know what? I need to remember that, because I don't have any more experience than him. We both are we're even keeled right now when it comes to this.
That's so true. Now, another thing that they said that is big time with me and Bryson, Mom has actually been here during these fights about it, is keeping score. We'll be like, especially bedtime, you'd be like, well, it's your turn to put the baby to bed. Oh no, but I took him to school. Oh no, but I fed him breakfast. Like, we literally do this, and it's so crazy. But do you guys ever do that?
Yes. I mean, is that what they mean by keeping score? Because when I think keeping score, I think about like arguments. You keep score of who won the argument, or more so in the argument. But I guess this article was talking about keeping score as far as with the children, who did what.
Yeah, I guess it could be either way. But Bryson and I definitely keep score about who did what with the kids.
We do too. I think it's kind of a way to get your way. Even today, I asked him every day. Oh my goodness, just yesterday too. I asked him to drop off the kids. No, to pick up we have certain roles. So keeping score doesn't happen a lot with us because we have very specific roles. He puts Dallas to bed, I do Dakota. He drops off, I pick up. He gets ready in the morning, so we have our roles, but sometimes when we have things that are outside of the norm, we can keep score. So yes, we do. This morning, for example, I woke up early. I got the kids breakfast. I did something I don't normally do. So this afternoon, I had to basically bring up the score. I was like, well, this morning I got them ready. And he's like, fine. So he picked them up, even though that's normally my job. But we really try to keep it balanced as much as possible when it comes to the roles and responsibilities. Plus, I feel like the kids, it helps them have that consistency as well.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, another thing that they mentioned, especially for those who have very newborns who are still sleeping, figuring out their sleep habits, parents will argue about whose sleep is more important. And this reminds me of back when the kids were still in our room and Bryson was going to work and I was still on maternity leave. And he'd be like, well, I need to sleep in because I have to work in the morning. And I'm like, well, no, I have to sleep in because I've been up with the baby. So again, sleep,
okay,
big cause of fights.
I could see that. I definitely can. I'm laughing because luckily my husband knows that I'm just always tired. He says this all the time and I always get offended because he's like, you're always tired. I'm like, no, I'm not, but he's right. I am always tired. So he's not. This is another way that we differ actually, because he can operate off of like 3 hours of sleep and be perfectly fine. He really can. I don't know what it is. Maybe he was conditioned in college, which I think he was, but he really can operate off little sleep. Whereas I need 8+ hours. So the sleeping in thing, he will let me sleep in on Saturdays. He just kind of takes the kids. He probably doesn't want to deal with me. If he doesn't, I'll be very grumpy. He'll take them and I'll get an extra hour or two. And he's fine. Like he's okay with that. But when it was in the earlier times, yeah, it was a debate of like who needed more sleep. But sometimes I felt guilty like that. Sometimes I feel like dads have like the raw end of the stick when it comes to newborns, especially.
Yeah.
Because the baby's relying on mom and dads want to do more. I can imagine it might be a little tricky waters to navigate when they're that young. So it's a losing game when it comes to sleep in a new dad and mom.
No, that's so true. Now, this article mentioned 2 other things as some of the top reasons that couples fight, and I really want to spend some time talking about both of these too. One is appreciation, so feeling a lack of appreciation or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the other one is lack of romance or lack of relationship time. So let's talk a little bit about appreciation for a second, just because I, in my personal experience with Bryson, one thing that I noticed that changed in our relationship after we had Jackson and now Russell is that time was just way more limited. And so we were more on this like, go, 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 like you do the dishes, you do the laundry. We got to take care of this baby crying. And I almost feel like we got into such of a routine of you need to do this, you need to do that. I need to do this, that we forgot to, or we were less likely to be like, oh, thank you. Or, you did a great job. And so not that everyone talks like that in their relationships, but it can sometimes make you feel like, gosh, this person does not appreciate me. They're taking me for granted. And I think that's something that a lot of people may experience at some point or another when they have, a new addition to their family and they're figuring out new routines. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you when it comes to appreciation?
It was, as you described it, it was a real challenge. With Dontrell and I, it was different because we got married and had a baby the same year. So, and we didn't know each other for years before we did, but we didn't really seriously date until we were a year and a half. When did we get married? Like 3 years before our wedding. And so that is a decent amount of time, but we didn't live together until a year before our wedding. So there was a lot of learning that was happening with a lot of changes that were also happening. And with the appreciation, especially with the new baby, with all the changes, it's just so rapid. It can make your head spin. So one thing that I will say about us is that we are very transparent. If we're feeling a way, we will say it. We don't let things fester. That's something that I do like and appreciate. So we've had several conversations. I have had it with him about saying that I don't feel appreciated. And mainly this was because I was exhausted and like doing a lot around the house, which many times can be self-inflicted. Like choosing to make sure everything is in place before going to bed, all the dishes are put away, this and that. But also having to figure out, because our relationship was so new, what our roles are in the house, as well as what our roles are with as a parent. And so we had several conversations saying, I don't feel appreciated. Well, why not? And, understanding what does it mean what does appreciation look like? How can you show that during when you don't really have time? And then after those conversations, things always change, but we had to revisit it a lot because I would still continue to do a lot around the house, still do a lot. And then again, feel like I don't feel appreciated. You don't recognize all that I'm doing. Like you don't see me doing all this stuff. And you're just, and then he's like, well, I'll let you do it because he feels like I would prefer it to be done a certain way. So instead of me correcting the way he does it, I might as well just do it. Yeah. So it was just a conversation and understanding. We definitely are in a way better flow, like 100% flow now. But
sometimes it's like figuring out the flow. Like I feel like
Yeah.
the flow changes like a change in course of the river when you have kids. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting hearing you talk a little bit about this because I think that appreciation for my family or understanding how each other feels appreciated also reflected how we communicated because our communication styles are a bit different, and definitely in times where we were so passionate about our kids and we wanted things to be the right way, quote unquote, or feel like our way is the right way, we had to communicate a bit differently. And then maybe some of the ways that we wanted to feel appreciated, we weren't able to verbalize to each other. Mm-hmm. So I think even in a real time, work in progress kind of situation of figuring out how do we show appreciation and how do we express that we want appreciation, I found that the roles in my house significantly have changed since having kids as a reflection of this appreciation. For example, Bryson and I started dating when I was a first year of medical school, and his job is more flexible with hours than it is when you're in medical training and now as a physician in my practice. And so in our relationship up until having kids, he was the one who always cooked for us, who always did our grocery shopping, who really anytime something needed to be done last minute or any kind of errands, he's the one who would do them because that was just the nature of what was allowed with my schedule. Mm-hmm. So when we had kids, I was like, great, he's been doing that. Let's just keep doing that. But it's different to cook dinner for 2 adults compared to cooking dinner now for 2 adults, a toddler, bottles and babies, and then laundry for everybody. So it was very clear that those roles were not going to be able to continue in that way and that things had to shift. Mm-hmm. And so some of the questions about appreciation was from him, like, I want to feel appreciated for these things that I'm doing, where I was like, you're doing the same thing you were doing before. Like, what's different? Mm. So it's interesting because that really does shift what you may be used to before. And then that can flow over into, your relationship, not just as parents, but husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend or what have you, Mm-hmm. So that's been really interesting.
Because what you're doing has a different meaning now. So even when it comes to what you're saying, how Bryson has responsibility of cooking, and even me, I was the primary cook in our house. But then I had to realize, I'm like, when I'm cooking now, I've been doing it, but now it's taken away from time I can be doing other things, like spending time with the kids when they get home and like having those moments. So I would start to feel jealous of the fact that when I'm cooking, he's over there playing and making fun moments with the kids, even though I had always been doing this thing. Now it's like, oh, wait, I want to go over there and just have fun, lay around and be jovial. And just so after recognizing, and appreciation isn't the right word, but just the shifting of responsibilities and like how the new dynamic of children changes what used to be just the routine and how it changes how I perceived it and my feelings about that job I used to have in the house. Like that also changed, that caused conversations and made things shift as well. So I feel like you really just have to be very fluid and communicative with your partner based on what's going on in the house and with the children and with your relationship.
Oh, yeah. I
Do
know
you guys
we were talking a little bit about, appreciation, but we've kind of stemmed into this conversation of roles. And it reminds me of something that I had a hard time with when Jackson was born. And it's not anything I expected to feel. But when Jackson was born and I went back to work, because Bryson was again had a more flexible schedule and he had more of the routine of cooking and all this stuff, I felt like he and Jackson were in this, they had their own routines together, especially because I do a job where I sometimes spend the night in the hospital overnight. So I was the only parent who had ever been away from Jackson for the first year. Mm-hmm. Bryson never like traveled or anything without me there, but he was alone with Jackson. So there were a couple of moments where something would happen with Jackson and Bryson would be like, oh yeah, I already knew that. Or he's been doing that for a couple days, a couple weeks, or not weeks, but a couple days or maybe a week. And I was having a hard time with that because in my head, my expectation was, well, I'm the mom. Shouldn't I be the one who has like these experiences with him that he wouldn't have with Jackson? But again, sometimes something about understanding that roles may be a little bit different, or we have our own experiences with baby. And that was carrying over into my relationship with Bryson, because I was like, how are you able to do this without me? How do you know these things about me and not telling me? So that was another interesting experience too.
Yeah, because now it's not only your relationship with your spouse, it's your relationship with each other, with these other little people in the house, and then you witnessing your spouse as a parent. So, that's another spinoff conversation, is how it was to observe your spouse or your partner as a parent and how that changed your relationship. But yeah, just kind of wrap that up with the roles. I feel like Bryson and I kind of have similarities with our firstborns and our relationships with them. And, sometimes with Dallas, he kind of has a preference toward me in certain regards. And so Dontrell would get a little jealous, I would think. I think it's jealousy. I don't know. He probably wouldn't call it that, but but he would feel some hard feelings because Dallas was like, leave me alone, daddy. Where's mom? Even tonight, he was crying all over the house for me. And I was just putting the baby to bed. And Dontrell could not console him. But sometimes I see that affection Dontrell in my relationship based on the relationship he has with the children or his interactions with the children. Not like horribly, but he would say stuff, and I'm trying to feel like with Dallas's relationship, I'm trying to make him feel better, consoling him, like, oh, well, he loves you, he's gonna grow out of it, like trying to give him advice and stuff. But that is such a unique, it's like something we'd never had ever encountered before, is like, okay, helping my partner strengthen his relationship with our child, because we each have different relationships with the people in the house. Even the babies have unique relationships with each of us.
No, that's so true. Yeah. Now, you mentioned something about witnessing your spouse or partner become a parent, and that has been an absolute pleasure for me. Like, it almost makes me love Bryson 10 million times more seeing him as a parent. And it's interesting because seeing him take like such loving care over these kids and worry about every little boo-boo and entertain them, and just like the energy that he puts behind educating them on topics or teaching them things. It's just like, wow, this is who I married.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I do love about, witnessing him as a father is
Yeah.
watching him grow in this sphere.
Yeah, I agree. I feel very lucky that my kids have Dontrell as their dad because he is just so awesome. He's so awesome with them. Everything you could want in a dad, he is that. Man, it's just so great. Like I know, and what's even more unique is that he is the father that he didn't really have growing up, but he is like textbook great dad. Somehow
So
he's so
good.
textbook. So I'm not surprised. I knew he'd be great. I knew he'd be awesome. He always loved kids, but sometimes I just sit back and watch and I love how our dynamic is so different with the kids. I remember at first I would kind of be like, do I need to be a little bit more like him? But then cause I'm like, okay, he's so fun, upbeat. And I was like, you know what? I bring my own thing. But in the beginning, I kind of thought I needed to do things differently because I saw how the kids would react to things he did. I'm like, oh, wait, maybe I should do that too. Like dancing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I dance more around the house. I never really, I probably only do that because of him, but like things like that. Did you ever feel like question that or kind of look at what your husband did and like, oh, wait, maybe I should, or, are
Oh,
there any
absolutely.
feelings of like insecurity or just
Well, in the
walk?
beginning,
Mm-hmm.
Jackson was obsessed with Bryson. I mean, he still is, but he was so obsessed and he would only want to be around his dad. And, oh, I want daddy, daddy this. And I was like, well, man, they told me boys love their moms. They lied. Like, I was so convinced. And then I would be like, gosh, what is it about me? He's only ever like crying or whining around me. But then I realized it's a response to what they get from us. Like, naturally, Bryson is jovial and dancing and fun all the time. And I'm like that too, but I'm more cuddly, like you said. So
Mm-hmm.
Jackson would want to come with me when he wants a hug or he wants to snuggle or, read books. And it was just a response to that. But at first I was like, what am I doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
But just as my confidence built as a parent, I'm realizing like, oh, that's just, par for the course because that's what he's attracted to at that time. And now he's the biggest mama's boy.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, observing Bryson and his relationship with Jackson at the time, now both of them, but really thinking back to Jackson, there was a little jealousy that I had. And you said that you thought Dontrell had a little jealousy of your relationship with the kids, but I almost felt like all this energy, this fun, this excitement that was going toward his relationship with this new baby, budding toddler was taking away from the fun that him and I used to have. So this brings me really to that last topic of the article that was like lack of romance, lack of relationship. I really had a hard time in the beginning months of having Jackson. I had a hard time with how our romantic relationship changed. I really did. And part of it was because our relationship was so like Bryson and I are in our own bubble. No one's around us. We're laughing. We have our inside jokes. It's just constant, like one-on-one, intimate, eye-to-eye, laughing, like conversation kind of communication with each other. And so when you have kids, there's no one-on-one 100% of the time. And
Mm-mm.
a lot of your energy is like multitask. So you're halfway listening to you while doing other things. So I felt like that intimacy we had with bonding and cuddling and just having one-on-one focus on each other was no longer there. But then I would look over and see him laughing and having this ball of a time with our kids, which seems crazy to be like jealous of your baby. But I was like, wait a minute, what about me? It sounds so crazy.
No.
But did you ever feel like that?
I did. Well, no, that doesn't sound crazy at all. I think you probably missed the moments that y'all used to have. I missed that too. And it's hard to even miss it sometimes because everything is moving so quickly. Sometimes you don't even have a moment to think back to how things used to be. But I did have a moment, even just this past week. I did have a moment, there was like a actual second probably where I had this thought and I held on to it for dear life to like keep thinking about it. But I was like, oh my God, I remember back before we had kids. And I even brought this up to Dontrell. I was like, Dontrell, you remember how before we had kids, we used to like slowly wake up and we would slowly wake up and talk about the day. And even there were even times when we would skip work. We did that like twice. We would skip work, like, let's just stay home today. Let's just lay around and watch movies and stuff and just hang out. We did that a couple times before we had kids. Every morning before he went to work, he would give me a kiss and say, have a nice day. That is just a thing of the past. That's just can't even happen at all anymore. The minute our eyes open, we're opening our eyes because somebody's crying or somebody's awake. So yeah, I definitely feel like the relationship, the romance, or those small moments that is probably the foundation of the relationship is gone.
Exactly. Maybe not gone, but changed.
No, I feel like it's gone. I mean, I feel like it did what it was supposed to do. It built a foundation, but I don't think that those days will be back for a long time. We still have moments, but it's just like your brain space is just so consumed by children and everything else that unless they're not around, even when they're not around, you're still talking about them. But I totally agree that I miss those moments of just like him and I having those just like romantic moments and sweet moments. Cause I feel like now everything is just so urgent, abrupt, fast paced. It's like, I can't even see it being like that.
It feels like there are bigger priorities. Like I feel like I would love to lay in the bed. In fact, Bryce and I are morning people. And again, we both will be up bright and early. I think this morning we got up at 5 a.m. And I was like, yeah, we could lay in the bed and talk and blah, blah, blah. But I got to work on this thing. I got to work on that thing. Yes. So he went to his office. I was in the room. I was just like, this is crazy. But that's what life can look like. But I also think as we have gotten deeper into parenthood, we are really trying to be more intentional about bringing back, the things that make us happy in those intimate moments. So, one of the ways that we have tried to do that is by trips or like little times away. We have gone to Chateau Elan for a weekend. He took me to the Ritz just for a birthday getaway, but just like short little moments where we can literally just have fun. We were on scooters all around the city of Atlanta and just doing stuff that we would have done before. Mm-hmm. So what are some things that you feel like you guys do to keep love alive and just get back to what makes you guys happy as a couple for that relationship time?
Yeah. Definitely vacations when we can. I mean, we went to Cancun this summer and it was awesome. I mean, that was the most fun, carefree time. So if we can have kid-free vacations, they're always a really great time when him and I can like reconnect and have the single fun we used to have before kids. But even beyond that, like there are things we do every day to show appreciation and value to each other and to continue to strengthen the relationship. So even little things like cooking meals that the other person likes, like just that shows thoughtfulness it's small, but it does show thoughtfulness.
Thoughtfulness, I think that word is so key. I think that goes back to appreciation, to say, hey, I know we're busy, but I thought about you today. Mm-hmm. So I love that. For me, it's for Bryson, if he's listening, he may or may not agree about this, but me just bringing him a cup of coffee in the morning, because that's something that he just really loves, to think that I brought him that coffee, even though that's our busiest time of day.
Yeah. It's little things like that. Like you're saying, Dontrell and I work from home together. I might bring him a lunch, cook something for him, bring it upstairs and surprise him, like, oh, hey, I made you a lunch. Or he'll go to Starbucks and grab me a coffee without me asking. I mean, sadly, everything revolves around food, but that's just kind of how it is right now. But those do show little thoughtful, appreciative things. It's just showing that you're also listening to the other person by doing those small gestures. Dontrell's really great about gift giving. He'll buy little things and just surprise me with it. Like he bought me a dress at the end of the summer. He's like, surprise, here's this dress. I know I like you in this color. Or he'll get me.
Oh, that's sweet.
He got me like this, or even actually something I got him. He motivates me to do little things like that. He got earbuds or AirPods. I never know what to call those things. He got that the other day when we were at Costco. And, so I was out of town. I ordered him like a case for it. just like something cute, like a little Gatorade AirPod case. So
Mm-hmm.
little things like that, we try to do that, or when we're thinking about it, we'll do it. And we know that that'll make the other person happy. Yes, it's not time spent, which is my favorite love language is time spent, but it is a kind gesture. And it makes the other person smile and feel special, which
I'm
is
so
important.
glad you just brought up the love languages, because that to me is something I always have to keep in mind when I think about my communication style with Bryson. One of the biggest things for our family that I really try to incorporate is improving our communication style. And that's big for Bryson and I. And that's ever since we had Jackson. So when we were engaged, we read the 5 love languages book together. We would read that every night. And so my love language is time spent, and Bryson's love language is the one where you do things for people. Acts of service. Acts of service. And I hate acts of service. I hate to serve him, but I know that he likes it. So bringing him a cup of coffee, this man is begging me to do another load of laundry or cook dinner for him. So, those are the things I'm like, gosh, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to go out of my way to try to do these things to show my appreciation, to show I care, because that is what I think is going to be the key to continuing to build and grow our relationship with this new normal of having kids, which has been a good thing.
Yes, that book is really important. And I'm laughing. I laugh when you were talking because I remember Don Charles's words of affirmation, which I hate because I don't know. I'm not mushy. I don't like saying things like that, but he loves it so much that he will try to force me to have words of affirmation. So an example of this, and he is so sweet. He's such a romantic guy. He bought these composition notebooks like probably 2 months ago. And he was like, I bought these notebooks. I want us to start writing kind notes in it. Once a week, we're going to exchange the notebooks and we're going to write nice things about each other in the notebooks.
Oh, that's sweet.
We did it for about 3-4 weeks, but then we stopped. But that's his way of basically forcing me to say nice things. I was like, where'd you come up with this? Like, I just made it up. He was at Walmart and just picked up composition notebooks.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was very sweet. Like, we would say really cute, kind things, and we need to pick it up again. But like, maybe that's another way of like forcing somebody. What did you say your love language is?
Time spent.
Yeah, forcing somebody to
I'm
spend
constantly like, Bryson, come on, let's watch this movie together. Let's do this. He's like, football's on. But it must be some joke of the universe that people don't have the same love language.
I
Like,
know.
why the heck can't we both just want to spend time together and call it a day?
But even like, I know I'm not the words of affirmation, but you can like, even if you want to force him, like when he goes to the grocery store or something, you can be like, oh, I'm going to go with you. Like that would probably make him feel good. And you're going to get your time spent and he's going to get, well, he'll get time
he
spent.
probably, no, you know what? This is what it is. I'm like, yes, let's go to the grocery store together. I have said this to him a million times. And he's like, oh, you can just go then. See, it's a trick.
Active service. He's trying to get you to do active service.
It's a trick.
Yeah, no.
But yes, I think the key though is just, focusing on ways that you can show that you love this person. I mean, you guys had babies together, so obviously you love them, and just continuing to grow that relationship by communication, showing appreciation so that you can continue to find those times of intimacy together. Now, it's hard in the pandemic because you aren't, well, at least, when it started, you can't do some of the things that you would have done before. And so dates were one of the things that we really didn't do that much with Russell, even though we were so intent about it with Jackson, because restaurants were closed or you had to social distance. So how did you guys handle that with the pandemic?
Man, we didn't figure it out. We really didn't figure it out as far as dates go. We didn't. I mean, you probably think differently. I know our family thinks Central and I are so active outside all the time doing stuff, but we didn't really figure it out because one of us always had to be home with the kids. So we couldn't really go out together. So honestly, for us, the time that we got was like pillow talk, laying in bed at night. And one thing I enjoyed about being at home for the past, 18 months, however long it's been, is that we can have dinner together every night. And that's something we had never done before because we both had traveling jobs. So now we get to have dinner together every night. We get to really, and we sit down at the table every night together as a family. And so that's not a date, but it is a time sometimes when the kids aren't like talking over us where we can connect on the day, we can like debrief. And I want to go back to what you said about communication, because that has been one of Dontrell and my greatest struggle in our relationship is communication, because we also have different communication styles. I'm loud, he's not loud. I'm direct, he's indirect. But so with communication, something small that we had to also do that I had to work on with him is just being present when we're communicating. That means cell phones away, looking in the eye, not multitasking, because that is a way to also show appreciation and like interest in what the other person's talking about. Like we said earlier, things can get so busy, but so for us, it wasn't really like date things that we were doing during the pandemic. It was just communicating better and being present with each other when we were around each other, and not just like talking at each other, telling us about our day, but actually really engaging in a meaningful conversation, like a real conversation, not just like offloading all the time.
No, that's really good. Bryson and I are a little bit more homebodies than you and Dontrell. So date days are not the biggest thing in the world for us, but more so just time to be alone without the kids. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things that we've done are like in the house kind of date kind of things. So, we will like keep the TV off and just talk about like random things that are interesting to us, like things that are going on in current events or pop culture. Mm-hmm. Or we will alternate picking a movie, and we'll watch a movie in a different place. So it's not like in our room, but like we may watch in our living room, in our guest room or something like that. So it's like a change of scenery while like making a charcuterie board or cooking together. Mm-hmm. Or like we try to just change things up. So it's like, okay, the kids aren't really around or present, and we can do something active if we can't get out of the house. Of course, we do dates out of the house too.
Right.
The other thing that we try to do with mom being across the street, as you know, is that she watches our kids once a week. And so, I mean, sometimes we take that time to do stuff for ourselves, but with that day, we really try to be cognizant of having time together to just do whatever we want, whether it's eating dinner together or we're cooking together or something like that on those times too.
Yeah, that's really nice. But what you said made me remember that we sometimes try things, just randomly try things as indoor dates. It many times doesn't stick, but we'll try things occasionally to see how it sticks. We've tried board games. We tried video games. There was a time when I was playing video games with him, trying to but I was playing like the cooking games. I wasn't playing Madden. I was like, can we do this like Sims type of game where I can make food and build a village? So we did that. We tried, we like made up a game once, or we had to like write 5 things we like about each other. Like just random things we'll do. Sometimes play Heads Up. So if we're desperate, if we feel like we want to try something different, we'll try something, but more likely than not, we want to get out the house and do something. Like mom's watching the kids this weekend, so we literally have something to do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, dates for us on each of those days, because we do prefer to get out the house, especially since we both work from the house. We're here all the time. All the time. All right, everybody, it's now time for Rapid Fire, where we ask questions related to the topic of the day. So our very first question is, what is the number one tip for Nita to keep love alive in your marriage or your relationship with your partner?
Honestly, I think it's laughing. So life gets crazy. You've got the kids and responsibilities and work. But I know with Bryson and I, anything that gets us laughing. So we have our inside jokes. We love to watch shows and movies that are entertaining, but just laughter, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that just makes life more lighthearted.
Oh, I love that. That's really true. You guys are always laughing. For me and Dontrell, I think the number one tip I have is quality time together outside of the house, something that is kid free. that keeps love alive because you're able to focus on each other, talk about things without the kids interjecting or competing for that attention. So we love going out and doing fun things, going on fun dates and weekends.
No, I
Next.
think you guys are so good with that because you always seem to be making it a priority to get a babysitter and to go out and just have time for just you. So, I mean, that's something that Bryson and I could absolutely do better about. So that's really good.
Next, what is your favorite type of date that y'all have been on ever since having kids?
When we have weekends away. So we're more homebodies. When we do dates, it may be something in the house or near our side of town. But when we have the opportunity to spend a weekend away or to, I don't know, go just to a hotel just to have the weekend there, I think that's been beneficial for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. For us, the best date, we went to Cancun. I mean, that was like a whole trip. But again, going back to the first one, that Keep Love Alive, that was really great because it was just a vacation for us. It's really not a date. We have gone out and stuff like out to eat, but when it's something where it's truly completely removed and like let your hair down, that for me is our favorite date that we've been on. So what is the best tip that you can give to improve communication with your partner?
So what has worked really well for Bryson and I, and of course, this is just a work in progress still, but in moments when we are not fighting or we're in a happy space, really being able to talk to the other person about how we like to be communicated with. And in doing that, when we actually are in a moment of conflict, I can remember, okay, this is how he actually prefers to have a conversation, or we need to, if we're getting really amped up, maybe we need to take time apart. So that way it helps us to be a bit more productive.
Mm-hmm. So for me to improve communication, I would say truly listening, like practice active listening. Listen to what your partner needs because they will tell you what the issue is and also how they want to be communicated with. So for me, the best tip is to listen and actually be perceptive to what my husband is saying. What is the number one tip that you can give to help your partner when it comes to the kids?
Well, for this one, I think that we tend to gravitate to different tasks with the kids. Like Bryson tends to be the one to prepare their meals, and I tend to be the one to have the routine with bedtime. And so my number one tip when it comes to, co-parenting your kids is to, work as a team and find that balance on who likes to do what, and then just, pitch in where you can, but kind of figure out your flow together because it'll make things less stressful and more seamless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree actually. So I would say leaning into your strengths. For me and Dontrell, I'm somebody that's very routine. I'm very routine when it comes to things that the kids are doing at home, from their meals to bedtime and all that. So I tend to keep us on track when it comes to going to bed on time, eating meals at certain times. I guess I'm a timekeeper in a sense. And Dontrell is really great at making the kids enjoy the moment. So they are always having a good time, very spontaneous and playful with the children. So he leans into that. And so they know that when they're with daddy, they're going to have a good time. It's going to be something different and fun. He's going to be a bear. He's going to be a dog. He's going to chase them. He's going to dance. And so we lean into our strengths. So I would say that's my big tip.
That's good.
What is the most common fight that you all have?
Where do I begin? No, right. But seriously, I think that the most common fight we probably have is it's like stupid stuff. Like we're not having huge blow up fights, but it could be something as little as like who was the last person to do something and whose turn it is. Like it just tends to be something that you're like, what was this about? This is dumb. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's usually something nitpicky and not like a huge big blow up kind of thing.
Right. For us, I feel like we kind of bicker sometimes. So I think even less about the fights, but it's like bickering, like little things like, oh, did you do that? Did you do this? Like things around the house. Did you do the dishes? The laundry needs to get done. And it's kind of just like the way it can be said sometimes comes off like an argument, but really it's just like, okay, the never ending chores around the house can sometimes cause us to just kind of be annoyed.
You know what? Ending. I'm literally thinking about a fight right now, or like a little tiny fight. But basically, the thing that Bryson and I will get into all the time, he literally drops his clothes in front of the hamper. Like, I'm like, why can you not get it inside the hamper? It just is right in front of the hamper. And for me, he hates that I'll put dishes on the counter instead of putting them in the sink sometimes. And he's like, why can't you just put it in the sink? And that is hilarious to me because it's like we're basically doing the same thing just in different ways.
Yes, you are. Y'all are both.
So that's our little fight we get into daily.
Oh my gosh. I can see that every single day. So the next one, what are the biggest challenges that you faced, or one of the biggest challenges you faced when you all had a new baby?
I think our biggest challenge for our relationship was communication, because we both had this passion about the kids and wanting to do right by them and wanting to be great parents and opinions on what was right and what wasn't right. So communicating our preferences, and then in the middle of disagreeing, figuring out how to communicate without turning it into a big blow up fight. So that's why I said earlier, I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah, communication is so important with new babies because there's so many new changes. For us, I would say the biggest challenge was just operating on a lack of sleep. We both struggled with that. We both were like kind of dragging and having to keep ourselves motivated throughout the day, even though we were just both operating on such little sleep. So even more so with Dakota, I feel like we felt it more, but that for us just was so hard in the beginning for both of us. And sometimes it caused us to argue just because we were so exhausted. We didn't have the patience to like have civil conversations. We just couldn't do it. In what ways do you think that you guys are the most alike? And how does that help you as parents?
I think that we are silly and goofy by nature. And so we love to have silly fun with our kids. We're rolling around, dancing, and we are trying to get our kids to kind of exude the same kind of fun. And so I think that that is perfect for the life we want for our family and how we interact with our kids. So I think that's how we're like.
Yeah, definitely. We're most alike because we love having events. I know that's maybe not, you would think that doesn't relate to children, but we love having events and we love doing things with our kids, like event wise. So if we're doing, like we had an event for Halloween, we had some friends over and we made it for the kids too. We made little Halloween type of foods for the kids. So we love hosting events on Charles and I, but we also love doing that. Finding ways to do fun things with the kids. Even Thanksgiving, I brought over that little ice cream in a bag activity. So when there's events going on, sometimes we like to just make it something a little bit extra fun for the children too.
Yeah.
So how are you guys most different, and how does that help you as parents?
I am very type A, like routine, have a to-do list, and like to check it off. And Bryson is not. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen him make a to-do list in my life. So we are just total opposites, because fly by the seat of his pants and I like order. But I do think that that's helpful because it just fits. Like not everything needs to be so stringent, and there are times when it does need to be. And so I think that works perfectly for the things that need to get done. And then we can just be a little bit more lax on certain areas.
Right. Yeah, that's a good balance. For me and my husband, he is a morning person and I'm a night person. So in the first thing in the morning, he actually gets up at 5 a.m., works out. So he is like super amped up right away. Whereas I am not. But in the morning time, he does the kids. So because he's a morning person, he'll get both of the kids ready, get them to school, drop them off. They're playing music. They're got a nice flow about them in the morning time. And I'm in bed. In the nighttime, though, he's a little more less organized, and I'm on it with the bedtime routine, with dinner. I'm just like flowing in the afternoon. Even after a long day, I'm like, all right, I've got my groove. Let's do this. Dinner, bed, bath, book, everybody, essential oils, like everything's all in place in the afternoon and the evening time. So that's a good balance about how it helps us as parents.
That's good.
And then last question, what is the greatest tip that you have to give to other parents of young children when it comes to nourishing your relationship?
My number one tip would be to put your relationship at top priority. Probably put yourself number one and your relationship number two, because you have to take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and all those things. And then in order for your relationship to be good, but then if next is your relationship, then it will trickle down into your family, your kids, everything like that. So making sure that there's times for relationship wellness, times for dates, times for quality time, times for happy, positive moments for just you and your spouse, as opposed, or partner, or what have you, as opposed to just you and the whole family. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. I think for me, and I agree with that too. For me though, to say something else different would be to nourish your relationship is to give yourself a break. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be perfect in with parenting, with a relationship. Like this is a new thing for you and your partner to be parents of young children every day at every age and phase. It's still, even though they might be 9 or 10 or 15, whatever, it's still a new phase for you as a parent. So I'd say to just allow yourself some grace, patience, and to not be hard on yourself in your partner when it comes to how they're parenting and the decisions you make for your children and for your relationship. So really just to take it easy and to show yourself some love and kindness.
I like it. Well, I just love, talking through what life has been like with our husbands, because it makes me know that we're not alone. Because some of the things Bryce and I be fighting about, I'm like, okay, is this normal? Like, what's happening here? But, it's all love. And I think our relationship has grown in such a beautiful way since having our kids. And it's almost like taking things to a new level because we're experiencing this new journey together, and the bumps and all, the peaks and the valleys together. So some of my biggest tips that I would take away from what I've learned in the last few years with kids and with my relationship with Bryson is just really focusing on communication, because I think that's the foundation for all the things that we're doing. Communication when it comes to dealing with our kids, for showing what we want from each other, or being able to talk through things that they may want for us. And so part of that communication style is that, using date time to just check in with each other personally and with the relationship. We have a therapist that we have gone to personally, just for like couples therapy, just to have maintenance, not that we have any problems, but I always think it's good to continue to work on that, because at the end of the day, life is going to throw you so many curveballs. But I think that as we grow in our relationship, communication is always going to be that number one thing to help us through it.
Yeah, we also went to somebody, especially during COVID. I think a lot of couples probably did.
Yes.
So my advice would be something that I heard when Dontrell and I were in premarital counseling before we got married. And the advice was to constantly date your partner, as in like always view your partner as your boyfriend or girlfriend. Because think back to when you and Bryson were dating, when your first date, those first months, first year, when you guys first met at Lucky's, what was that? Bar Louie or something like that, right?
At Lucky's.
Okay, yes, something like that. So just think back to those days and just how much you doted on each other, how much you just admired each other and adored, and like in the infatuation and all that, and how you also put each other first. So that is my advice, is to continue to view your partner as your boyfriend, girlfriend, and then also to put each other first, because if you're putting the other person first, then you're ultimately going to be serving yourself in the betterment of your family, because you're putting the needs of your partner first. Because, that's something that really resonated with me, because I feel like when I think about a family, I feel like if the spouses are good, then the rest of the family is good. And so that really goes with communication, with the love languages, with everything that goes along with the relationship. Just continue to put your partner first. And if he's putting you first and you're putting him first, and you're always going to be well taken care of, and you're going to be in a good place for the family.
I love that. So true.
Yeah. So what do you think, and I want to hear this from you and I want to answer it, but what is your favorite thing or something that you like about the relationship that you see in me and Dontrell. And then I'll answer the same thing for you and Bryson.
Oh, okay, wonderful. I really love that you guys make your family like your world. Like you guys have your routines, you have family time, like you said, eating dinner as a family, you guys go on walks, you can see y'all work as a unit, and you are feeding that into your kids. And so that kind of goes back to how you guys are as a couple, just making yourselves a priority with dates and really giving a lot to each other. And that's a lot for me and Bryson to like look up to sometimes. I'll be like, oh, Bryson, they're on another date. We need to get on their level. Or like, it just seems like you really put a lot of focus and energy into doing what's best for you guys as a couple and your family. So that's something I really love about you guys.
Yes, we do. We do. We definitely prioritize this house, and we just really enjoy being together. I think that's a part of it. We like doing stuff together with him and I, and with the kids. They just add so much more to everything. So with you and Bryson, what I really love about y'all, and I was reminded of this the other day when I was at y'all's house and I spent the night and we're in the room watching like Snapped, is that you guys always just seem to really have so much fun together and enjoy each other so much. And I see that before you guys had kids and even now with children. Like I was reminded of it when we were watching the show, because I was like, you guys you're changed. It seems like your relationship is just as strong today as it was, probably stronger as it was, when you first met, or that your love is just as exciting and fun and strong today as it was back then. Because I spent a lot of time with you guys because I didn't have a partner for many years. I was kind of just tagging along New Year's Eve and stuff like that.
I was just thinking about New Year's Eve.
I would be there with you guys. And I still feel the same energy that y'all had back then. It's still very much alive. And like, y'all are just so, oh my gosh, y'all are just really
goofy,
similar in the way that y'all are together. It's so funny. Like, just like, oh my God, Bryson. And just, so I do love that about y'all. I see that y'all have just endured, your love has endured. It's just like so consistent through the years. Even when y'all don't get along, like soon after, you're back on that happy, jovial page. And I love that he really makes you so happy. So I love seeing y'all together. And with kids, it's the same thing. It's like y'all bring that energy to your relationship with your children as well.
Oh, I love that. Oh, well, yeah. What a beautiful way to end. I'm so glad we got to talk about all this tonight. And, there are ups and downs with everything we do in life, but the same thing goes for our relationships. So it's a work in progress. And I hope that some of this is helpful for those out there who are figuring it out with their partners or just on this journey of parenthood while also relationships. Mm-hmm. So join us again in 2 weeks, and we can't wait to talk to you guys then.
Thanks for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing. And leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Cradle and All, or email us at thecradleandall@gmail.com.